What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. Watching DaveBeyondTV, where we go beyond the everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And I want to make this video about reaping what you sow. You know what I'm saying? You hear that term, sometimes, or you might not have, but you know what I'm saying? It's a common phrase, you know what I'm saying? You reap what you sow. So what does that actually mean? You know what I'm saying? So in life, when you're going through your experiences, there are certain things that might not seem fair or balanced based upon, you looking at the outside world and you being yourself. Is like, sometimes it's like we all see something that's missing in the world. And a lot of times the thing that's missing in the world is the very same thing that we are here to represent, which is it's easy when you say it out front, but sometimes it becomes confusing because, everything is like pushing you to create that space that doesn't exist yet. And that's one of the hardest things. That's one of the hardest but most important things to know how to do in this reality. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about God, when we talk about all possibilities and things like that, you playing out a representation of that, you hold the power to create, the power to introduce something new to the world. And that's really what we're all building up to do, be one of a kind and relate ourselves, to expand the awareness, to expand the universe. You know what I'm saying? In the sense of, you brought something from your unique space and you expressed it in your unique way that, had never been done before, had it not been for you. You know what I'm saying? And you have to take that role sometimes. And like, this is more so for people on their spiritual path. That's kind of one of the biggest things, one of the biggest themes, knowing and learning how to create what wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? And you look in the Bible, that's what God did, basically. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the creation stories and things like that, it's all about, and there, you know what I'm saying, like sparking that light and having to be that representation of something that came out of nothing, in a sense, because we are no thing, but here we are here to express light, to create light, information, share it, extend it, expand ourselves, expand our own awareness. And that way we can have more tools to our access to express and represent different things that is going on internally that we may not see as an external representation yet. And even if you do see something, because again, like, 10 people can make music, but everybody's gonna make, if everyone were to tap into their own self and tap into their own power, you would have 10 different genres. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, the way the world is set up, sometimes it, people chalk it up to like, you know what, I'm just going to do what was already laid out here as a template in order to reach a certain position, and then that's where you see a lot of individuals do. They follow a template, they go along with whatever was presented to them. And that's the basis of their talent, or that's as far as their spirit is wanting to go. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I'm just gonna come here, I'm gonna do that what other people had did before me, and you know what I'm saying, that's how I'm gonna live my life. And to each their own. Everybody gotta figure out what works for them. You know what I'm saying? Because we see celebrities and things of that nature in positions of, like, oh shit, that's a good position to be in, at least from the outside looking in. But when it comes to reaping what you sow, the thing is, a lot of times, when we're going through our life, we experience restrictions, pain, and things of that nature that make us question, you know what I'm saying, that weigh on us sometimes. And we question, like, why do I have to experience this? Or why am I going through this? And why can't people just understand this about this? Why can't people just, notice this? And why doesn't anyone see it the way I see it? And the truth of the matter is, they're not supposed to. You're here to represent that space of something that no one has ever seen before. It's like, in a lot of ways, right, we have to come to grips with that. And a lot of, when it comes to reaping what you sow, a lot of it is being able to come to that conclusion without any resentment. You know what I'm saying? Because here's the thing. We have to understand that whatever karmic debt or whatever you was lost in as a spirit led you to create certain events and put certain things out that you have to return to. You have to make basically like a return on investment almost, or you get a return on investment. And a lot of that be the karmic experiences that you deal with, things that are seemingly out of your hand, that at some point you have to look at and be like, you know what, this might just be one of the, because it's like we all have a theme or a story that plays in our life. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, you might have a thing when it comes to poverty, and everything that you do comes back to your ability to either make money or keep money, da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's like your relationships are affected by it, your everyday life is affected by it, but it's a common theme in your life. You recognize it as something that reoccurs. So at some point, right, you could fight it all you want. You can blame others. You can go through ups and downs with yourself and the people that surround you. And you very well waste your whole life blaming them. But at some point, you got to look at yourself and say, well, what was I in that led to this in the first place? You know what I'm saying? You have to ask yourself, okay, well, if this is the thing that keeps on reoccurring in my life, at what point, at what part did I play in creating this issue or creating this circumstance to the point where it has materialized or solidified into a lesson that I have to keep learning, or until, you know what I'm saying, and figure out. And it comes down to, again, like, it's like the very same thing you see that's missing in the world on some subconscious level. It's up to you to actually be the representation of that. And not just the world, I mean, like, everything, you know what I'm saying? Because again, I'm speaking from a macro, you know what I'm saying? You looking at the world and like, oh, the world's missing more compassion or whatever. You here to represent that compassion. But like I was saying, that's the macro. But even on the micro, you know what I'm saying, you might find that every relationship you in, you deal with that same conundrum of people not being as compassionate about what you care about, or people not giving you grace in certain areas and things like that. Or you might feel like, man, everybody I get with, they don't do this or they don't see this, and I feel like you can get so lost in trying to fight a battle, right? And see, what happens is you start to internalize that pain, and if you're not aware, you let that pain define you. You let that become the very thing that changed you. That's the whole concept of don't let the world change you. You're supposed to change the world. AKA, when you get out of your own, I say ego in a sense, when you get out of your own way, you start to realize, okay, if I stop blaming and putting that responsibility on everybody in the world, and I choose to make that my responsibility to represent, the perspective shifts. And you start to understand the pain I experienced that is somewhat inexplicable is actually very much traced. It directly correlates to what, as a spirit, I've been lost in, and what I might have been chasing in a previous life, creating lines of events that led to me being here looking for that same thing. And either you abused it, or it was something that you was passive on. It could be many different ways in which this could play out. And again, a lot of this has to be things that you spend time reflecting on yourself and seeing what it is that you notice about these things. But when you step out of your own ego and you look at yourself and you say, you know what if I reverse the narrative? What if I said, instead of everybody in the world is missing this, what if I said, well, how can I display this in the face of the adversity I face? Because that's the whole thing. Reaping what you sow is a matter of you having to deal with that lacking energy, and you taking on the accountability and responsibility to represent that, to create that, to be the face of what it is that you feel as though you lack, or you feel as though you don't have or don't see in the world. It's like, it's confusing, but it's not, you know what I'm saying? Because when you understand what I'm saying, like, reaping what you sow is you dealing with the consequences of you being lost in a certain thing. And whether in this lifetime you're supposed to learn how to represent it without ever receiving it, that's the type of, I would say, I want to use the word humility, but that's a word that, like, I want to look up the definition before I just throw words out there. But on some tip, it's still in the family of being modest. It's like, that's where you, and even humility, because if I'm not mistaken, humility on some level is about you kind of bringing yourself back down to size. And like, yeah, it starts to sound like human. You know what I'm saying? This is what makes you human, in the sense of, this is what makes you bleed. You know what I'm saying? Like when you think of bleeding and stuff like that, like, we all bleed, right? No matter how spiritual you get, no matter how, whatever you think you are in this life, in this world, everybody bleed the same. And that's like the representation of humanity. Like, we all have thoughts and feelings. We all have a mind. So on some level, no matter how as a spirit, you know, powerful you feel, big as a spirit, no matter what body and shape and golem you're trying to, you know, be born into next, or what your mind is able to create outside of the, outside of this, you know what I'm saying, your mind creating basically, you know, these thought forms and these entities and stuff like that. No matter how far, how big, how strong, whatever, we all bleed the same. You know what I'm saying? If I was to cut your hand, it would bleed just like my hand. And that's where, on some level, again, that connects us all. You know, in when I'm using a very surface level example of humanity, but again, even down to thoughts and feelings, and how, you know, we talk about the collective and how you put a thought out and there's chances that there's other individuals who represent that, because it exists in the world. You know what I'm saying? And that's why they say, even, you know, there's a target audience for everybody. That's why you have to be yourself, because if you don't be yourself, it's like you're not, you know, you're never going to find your tribe. You're never going to find your people. And the more you hide yourself, the more you create those situations of you being in the wrong place, wrong time, you being around individuals who can't support what it is that you are and what you got going on, just simply because you're not being authentic and you're not being real with yourself. But part of reaping what you sow is peeping through that pain, through that difficulty, because it's a lot of pain, and that's how we develop a lot of trauma, just based upon us seeing something that no one else can see, and us feeling ways that, again, until you express your feeling, nobody else can feel you. You know what I'm saying? People can pick up your energy, but you still are at the mercy of wherever their mind is at. If their mind is not in a place to resonate with that, if their mind is not in a place to receive that, then you're still in the, you know, you're still not going to get that connection that you feel like you desperately want. You know what I'm saying? And even if you lie to yourself and say you don't want it, you know damn well it is what it is. But see, a lot of things that end up playing out like it is what it is in this life be shit that you are just simply reaping what you sow. It's nothing that the universe is trying to do to you. It's nothing that God is trying to take from you, but it's more so a reflection on what it is you spent time being lost in. You either come to the conclusion of, again, you either going to be that representation, or you always going to rely on the external world and wait on the external world to be that, when there's nothing. And that goes all the way down to the concept of no one's coming to save you. You know what I'm saying? That whole savior complex. This is why a lot of religious people be kind of going through distress, and it's like every now and then, you know, when something positive goes down, yeah, you can say, oh yeah, that's because I believe in blah, and that's all fine and dandy, but like at the end of the day, you got to actually ask yourself, is that helping, or are you just pacifying things throughout phases? Because at a certain point, you know, when the same thing keep popping up, it's like you got to look at that and be like, okay, well, I could either sit and cry about this shit, or I can figure out how I can actually be the representation, get out of my ego, get out of my feelings, get out of my thoughts, and ascend into a space in which I can now be the authority of that thing, or I can now, I don't have to feel like I lack. I can feel like I can, and it's not even feeling like I can actually see where I'm changing the world by first changing myself, changing my perspective, and choosing to embody that very same thing that from the outside looking in seems like I lack, or seems like I can't really produce, or wasn't the cause wasn't in my favor to experience. Because it's like, it's a lot of things that we might have had a taste of in a previous life, but due to whatever happened, we end up being born into a situation in which that very same thing is stripped away from us, and we're either here to deal with that absence. And how we choose to deal with that absence is up to you, whether you choose to go 10 times harder in it and create a new way for that thing to be played out, or you allow you know what I'm saying, like however you got to do it. But a lot of times it just comes down to embodying that very same thing. But part of reaping what you sow is recognizing those things, and recognizing where, you know, you don't actually lack. It's just up to you to create. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we put that responsibility on other people, where we expect other people to give us those things that we it's almost like we don't know that we can give ourselves, or it might be even some form of, and again, that's why I say it's like your ego, because sometimes you could feel entitled to certain things based upon previous lives and stuff like that. Previous lives, you might have had it easy in that way. So in this lifetime, it's almost like on a subconscious level, you expect that thing to be available to you. So you develop this somewhat of a snarky attitude or disposition towards participating in the energy when you desperately want the energy, and you wondering why nobody else is able to reciprocate it. Or say you very well do put it out in the world, but you are going through a bunch of experiences where you keep running into a roadblock where another individual or the world itself isn't giving that return to you on investment. And this is a part of reaping what you sow too, because it's almost like on some level, you're going to have to come to the realization that, okay, in this lifetime, this pain and this trauma that I'm dealing with, that's exactly what I might just have to do. It's almost like dealing with the cards you was dealt. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with the hand you was dealt. Understanding that, damn, like I might always have to fight for this. I might always have to be the compassionate one, even when there's nobody else to represent that. And you know, that sometimes is a hard pill to swallow, because again, we get into our ego and we don't want to always be responsible for that. Damn, like why I always got to be the first one to be the bigger spirit in this area, or why I always got to be the representation of this, that, and the third. And a lot of times it's not even for you to be asking why. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these things be things that you have to assume responsibility for, because what? You are reaping what you sow. These are seeds that you planted from previous lives. And again, in this lifetime, you can say, well, I'm doing everything I can to be a good person in this area, or do and look out for people in this area, but it just ain't working for me. It just ain't working for me. And it's like, sometimes we have to be real and take a step back and figure out what we need to remix in order to get it right. But at the same time, like, there's a certain level of accountability we just have to take with certain things that just work out in certain ways. And like, it's a matter of kind of accepting it. You know what I'm saying? We have to accept that, like, damn, I might not ever be reciprocated in this area. And even though that right there is scary, and that starts to sound like you settling for less, but actually, you know, just kind of how everything is in reverse, and less can be more sometimes when you accept that on some level. Because see, there's of course you could do it in a way that is negative, right? You can accept that, and it's almost like a defeatist attitude where you're like, you know what, yep, life is just going to be this way. And that's kind of letting the world change you to where now your heart is crystallized and hardened, and now you can't even ascend on that level, because now you're not light as a feather. But there's a other end to that where once you accept it, you assume the responsibility of it, and it's almost like you handle business in your own life. It's like it represents it turns into you. It's almost like forms of, or parts of your mission is a lot of times coded within that. A lot of times parts of your mission that you're here to do are coded in those things that you feel like you lacked, or you never had, or people never offered you. You know what I'm saying? You might have always felt like you had the compassion to give, but nobody else gave you the grace or compassion in that area of life in return. And it's like, again, like I said, on the positive end, that's you assuming responsibility for it. You accepting that, okay, in this lifetime, I'm reaping what I sowed. So therefore, the pain and things of that nature that I deal with, and the hardship I go through, is directly correlated to me. I caused this. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times when you accept that you are the cause, again, that sometimes can feel heavy on the front end, but on the back end, you start to, it's almost like a relief. It starts to be, it can be just as liberating, because at that point you realize and recognize, oh shit, okay, if I'm responsible for the karmic debt that I've accumulated or occurred, however you said the word, then it's my responsibility as a spirit to use my energy to pay it back. Karmic debt. You know what I'm saying? If you know what debt is when you borrowed something and, you know, you're supposed to pay it back. And sometimes it accumulates interest. So look at the interest being every time you choose to avoid it, every time you put the responsibility on someone else. A lot of times this is where toxicity begins to grow, because everybody got their own shit that they're dealing with that nobody knows. You know what I'm saying? Even if you in the closest bond ever, everybody got certain things that they fight every day that the other person just isn't aware of. And it's not that they don't care, that can't be shown and expressed. It's just the fact that we all been somewhere. You know what I'm saying? We all been somewhere. We all have this spiritual, these Akashic records, whatever you want to call them. We all have shit that we are carrying with us. You know what I'm saying? And some people are better at releasing than others. But, you know, no matter how many times you express, you're never going to know fully what somebody else is dealing with on an internal level. You're never going to know how they see things. You're never going to know about all the little things, the thought forms and feelings they go through just to get to a point to be able to express to you. And that's where we have to give each other grace, you know, of course. And I'm speaking to you on a level with, and I mean, this applies to people who ain't even spiritually aware, who still make those human mistakes and stuff like that. And, you know, this helps you understand them better, because when people are even acting out energies of being, you know, just being human, you know what I'm saying, acting out energies of being naive, or acting out energies of being spiritually damaged and things like that, you start to understand, like, you know, a lot of times their pain or their trauma is, a lot of times it's like, because when you're on your spiritual path, you become real good at kind of dealing with your own shit, to the point where you start to hit a level in space in which you don't necessarily pour your water on to others. So it might seem like you can handle a lot more than another individual, and you end up doing that, you know what I'm saying, because you're able to think for yourself and others. But then there's others who's more so on the surface level, the people who are just very much human mind. So they stumble and fall. All their water is all over the place. You can see their chaos from a mile away. The person who just can't get right, keep going to jail, keep getting themselves, you know, keep getting folks pregnant, keep getting pregnant, you know what I'm saying, in a sense of like mindlessness, you know what I'm saying. I'm not speaking on, you know, people who ended up having a kid, like not any and everybody. I'm just saying people who you see keep making the same mistake over and over again, and you can clearly see it's because of trauma. You can clearly see it's because of this, that, and the third, you know. Then there's the people on their spiritual path who, yeah, we all make mistakes, but and a lot of times it don't even be mistakes. It be experiences to those on their spiritual path. It be experiences that built them and led them to certain conclusions and got them to certain places. So it's a different, you know what I'm saying, you look at them differently. You look at them as an individual who, yeah, they got shit going on, but I don't see them sweat, you know what I'm saying? Or you see them as doing something to change their life. You know, you see them doing something, whether they expressing themselves, they putting themselves out there, they're making something out of their lives, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times that's what it should look like on your spiritual path. It should look like you making something out of yourself, you know, not the opposite, whereas it looks like you just online to complain and bitch and cry. But getting back to what I was saying, so when we talk about these different things, right? Oh, no, I'm just gonna rock out with the sun. But when we look at these different things, you know what I'm saying, these different things that play out, like when you understand the concept of reaping what you sow, this is an added layer to you on your spiritual path, where you can stop building resentment, and you can stop looking at people in your personal life as, you know, basically holding them responsible for things that they can't really cure for you. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. A lot of times we be blaming people for things that they just can't cure for us. And, you know, I think everybody wants the fairy tale scenario where, again, somebody outside of them is able to come into their life and be the representation of everything that they can, basically a savior. Everybody want a savior. You know what I'm saying? Even everybody wish there was somebody who could extend their hand out of nowhere and just lift you out of any issue that you have. And sometimes we put that responsibility on people, but the thing is, nobody really can do that for you. You have to be that to yourself. And once you do that to yourself, guess what you give to yourself internally, you see externally. So it turns into your actual life. People end up actually extending their hands in ways that you might not even have been privy to had you not gotten out of your own ego and started to do that thing for yourself. It's like you'll start to see the common things that people do that actually are representations of them caring about your situation and showing you grace, or whatever it is you feel like you missing in the world. You start to see like, damn, I'm actually changing the world now. I'm actually seeing things and people in my own life who are interested in helping me out based upon me choosing to help myself out. But helping yourself out sometimes got to look like you dealing with what, and again, that's still a fairy tale. That's still a fantasy. That's not guaranteed. So you can't even look at this and be like, oh, well, me, okay, if I just deal with what I've sowed and I'm reaping that, then one day I'll get. And it's like, you know, I don't even want to advise you to look at it like that. Like, oh, if I just do what they say, I'ma magically get that thing I'm still fantasizing about. Nah, that shit's still a fantasy. And life is funny in that sense that, again, sometimes you have to create equilibrium in the sense of reminding yourself, even if things seem like they're going that way. And we all need to have the balance of believing that's possible, all possibilities. However, stay realistic and stay equilibrium minded in the sense of understanding that that's not guaranteed. And that you need to make decisions based upon doing what's right for you rather than doing it for what you might get in the end. You know what I'm saying? You might think, oh, well, if I just do this, I could get that thing. No, it's still a matter of you having to make that decision for yourself, regardless of whether or not you'll be acknowledged or validated in that pain that you had to go through. Because that's the biggest thing too. A lot of all that pain and stuff like that, we go through so much of our life feeling alone and isolated in that space, because that's the plight of a spirit in this plane. You know what I'm saying? Us coming from an individual space but forced to connect. And every now and then, as much as we want to connect, we have to retreat. As much as we want to expand, we have to contract. So even though, you know what I'm saying, that be the thing that we all want to do and find better ways to connect, sometimes it just, all you can do is figure out how, again, and depending on what you was lost in, or depending on how much energy, whatever you was doing in the past life, because again, that's up to you to search within yourself and find those lines and footprints in the sand. But once you start to understand, like, oh, like this may have been something I've been dealing with, when you start to see, like, damn, why nobody in my life showing compassion? Okay, whatever you're in, you could look at astrology to start to look at, you know, and if you are looking into astrology, right, and you want to see where this might play out, and really what I'm just saying is like representations of where you came from. You want to understand your South Node. This is energy you came from, and it defines the energy you're going towards and the house it's in. You know what I'm saying? Like, if, for instance, if you got South Node Gemini in the 4th house, okay, my previous life was filled with conversations, maybe frivolous, but maybe at the same time fun. But in the 4th house, dealing with home. So that's where I come from. I come from a comfort zone. So I might have been scared to communicate or too comfortable communicating, to the point it led to me needing to be more wise this time around, me needing to travel a little bit further outside of my comfort zone and circumference that I'm surrounded by. You know what I'm saying? And like, you have to kind of add the, you know, once you know what the planets are and what the elements mean and what the signs mean and stuff like that, you can go on. But, you know, South Node is a good indicator. Chiron, because that's mistakes that you made, that you make in this lifetime, but they come from a subconscious space of wounds. You know, you make those mistakes because of wounds that you took on potentially in a past life. A lot of times asteroids, you know what I'm saying, like Juno, what you see as longevity. You know, this is you kind of having an idea of what you want to experience. So you could look at the opposite energy of your Juno as something that you kind of grew out of, and now you see longevity in something else. You know, that's something else. You know, I can make a video specifically on Juno, probably need to, but there's many different things. I mean, understanding your moon sign, even looking at certain patterns in your chart, like, oh, like everything come back to this alignment with my moon, and things in your life and that you experience that you're like, you know what, this must be a prominent alignment. You know what I'm saying? That because it keeps on coming up. You know, all of us are intelligent beyond what we know. You know what I'm saying? AKA your spirit is more intelligent than you. You is something that was created, you know what I'm saying, in a sense. If we getting deep on a spiritual level, you was created. You, who is you? You is something, you're no thing created. So, you know, but your spirit is more intelligent than that. That's why a lot of times what you see as the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do, sometimes you have to relinquish that and understand what your spirit needs and allow your spirit to kind of make those decisions. And I don't want to speak on spirit like it's something outside of you, but it's something that sometimes, especially if you're not on your spiritual path to the point where you've aligned these things and you understand the what I'm actually talking about in the proper context, you might still be looking at your spirit as something outside of you, X, Y, and Z. And really that's just a concept of you having it in the reverse. You think you are you and you have a spirit, but you are a spirit that created you. Y'all get what I'm saying? I know that might be a little confusing, but you know what I'm saying? You are a spirit that created you. You know what I'm saying? Not you having a spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like it might be, I don't know. Hopefully y'all caught what I'm trying to say. But you know, going back to what the topic of the video, reaping what you sow. You know, so it's not gonna look pretty. It's not gonna look and again, also trauma, understanding the ways in which you felt like you was traumatized. See, when you start diving into those things, you start to understand, you develop more understanding for maybe where you are and where other people are at that they may not be able to meet you at yet. You know what I'm saying? And again, we have to stop putting so much responsibility on others to heal us. You know what I'm saying? You really got to start to understand that there's very much a thing where people are out to hurt you. But a lot of times, like, especially if you in a especially if you on your spiritual path, and it's like you get to a certain point where the people around you are, you can tell like they more intelligent, right? Especially like when we talk about community and soul tribe and all these different things. When we get those things, like when we start to be ourselves and we start to be on our journey and we start to manifest these kind of people in our lives, a lot of times these people don't mean us harm either. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it just feels like that's what happens based upon just being in these human bodies and dealing with what we're dealing with. But we have to sometimes stop putting responsibilities on others to heal certain things that we need to heal first, that we need to kind of take the initiative of and express in the world without expecting anything in return. And that's part of accepting, like that's part of reaping what you sow too, because at a certain point you have to realize that this is what you sowed. So to make somebody else, that's like a farmer who planted certain seeds, and when they grow into crops, they blame somebody else's farm for what they grew on they crops. It's like you grew those fruits, good or bad. So if some of those fruits don't taste good, you can't blame the farmer down the street for not coming on your farm and planting that where you should have been planting that. You know what I'm saying? And it's like sometimes you might feel entitled to do that based upon you got a relationship with this farmer. You think this farmer your homie or something like that. But, you know, they got their own farm to tend to, you know. And again, when we talk about connection and things of that nature, we sharing farms and stuff. We can share farms, but we both have to tend to the land that we already accumulated. So it's like it becomes a thing where you have to tend to your land the best you can. And, you know, just as much as you want grace for your situation in your farm, you need to give grace to their farm too. And you can't expect them to always be able to plant seeds in your space, just like they can't expect you to always be there to plant the right seeds over there. At some point, y'all gonna have to figure out your own formula and understand your own land so that you can tend to it properly for you. And then that way, when you invite somebody else to your farm, you can explain to them why these crops is laid out this way and vice versa. So y'all can now come together. Oh, you like bananas? I actually can grow bananas in my farm. Oh, you like this? Well, actually, you know what I'm saying? And again, like, and going back to even relating that to the analogy of being what it is you feel like you missing, you know, showing up in that way, it's like, again, you got to work your land the best way you can. And if it's something you feel as though you don't have access to on your land, it's like you have to figure out what you can do with what you have. Again, you might not be able to make bananas, but let's say you can make something similar, or you can make something that either takes the place of the bananas, aka offers the same type of nutrients. So let's say bananas carry potassium. So you got to figure out, well, what else could I grow that can create potassium? And this be the representation, or the, you know, in a sense of you creating what it is that you feel as though you lack, but doing it in a way that is respectable in the eyes of God, in the sense of you didn't sit there and complain about what you lack. You chose to make the most of what you had. And again, you fucked around and you came up with a new crop that now you can exchange for a banana if you even still need those. Or you created a circumstance where you figured out a roundabout way to actually get the very same thing you felt like you couldn't grow, you know what I'm saying? But you figured it out. And I know that might have been a goofy analogy, but I'm trying to give y'all different ways to see these things, because when it comes to reaping what you sow, that's a very real thing. We all got karmic shit that we're dealing with, and a lot of times we just don't know. Again, it causes us pain because we have to go through life feeling like we don't have that. You know what I'm saying? And it's a tough thing. It's a tricky situation, because at some point you have to know that you are the creator of this. So you, in a sense, you have everything. You have access to everything. And that's how God see it. God like, you a piece of all possibilities. What you mean you ain't got this? Or what you mean you ain't got that? And that space alone can lead you to just create a lot of more havoc and chaos in your life, based upon you, again, being in a lack energy, you being in this energy of, because that lack energy turns into more trauma. It turns into you wanting to take from others, or you putting the responsibility on others that they're not even responsible for, and you cause them to be in certain conundrums, and you put blood on your hands in that sense. You know what I'm saying? You cause a lot of havoc in your personal life, because on a subconscious level you don't know how to kind of deal with that. And like, I'm not even saying that, you know, you can't find a situation in which people can provide that very same thing that you need, but sometimes it's like, not everybody can provide everything you need. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like, what I mean by that is like, on some level, it's like, only person who could provide everything you need is you. So on some level, it's like, you got to make that first initiative. You know what I'm saying? You got to take that first initiative, and you got to reap what you sow, in the sense of understanding that whatever I'm dealing with in this lifetime that I feel as though I lack, there was a reason why I lack that in this lifetime. And as I get closer to understanding that, I can get closer into knowing how to even communicate to other individuals what I need. You start to become very specific, clear, and direct with what it is that you want out of things. And that can help everybody out, because now it doesn't have to be a thing where you expect someone to just know, can't you see my farm? Can't you see I'm missing bananas and potatoes? You know what I'm saying? Can't you see I ain't got no potatoes on my land? It's like, damn, I didn't even know you like potatoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't even know you like those things. You know, and again, you can say all you want that, yo, man, like, I need potatoes. But sometimes, again, other people got their own farm to tend to too. So you gonna have to figure out either how to get that potato, and then even once you figure out how to get it on your own, or let's say you still can't. But whatever it is that you are able to do with your land, you still able to communicate it more clearly as to you know what, this is one of the things I'm trying to do in the world. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the things I'm trying to, you know, again, people see you as the representation of that. So now they actually, oh, like, wait a minute. You doing that? Wait, I think I got something like potatoes. Like, oh, I actually got some of that same thing you looking for as far as a nutrient. Like, I actually grow these things, and it might be something other than a potato. You know what I'm saying? Let me you know, get off that analogy and shit like that. Oh, Farmer Brown face ass. But you know what I'm saying? Real shit. So, you know, that's how it go. You know what I'm saying? Reaping what you sow is just you having to accept, you know, things in life as far as what it is. Like, you accepting that and then being willing to be the representation of that. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's very hard. It's very difficult, because again, everybody wants that handout. Everybody wants that extension of something. Everybody wants it to be that simple, that plain, that clear, that cut. But you know, it just is what it is sometimes, man. It just, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to, that's the thing about this world. It's like, you have to be what you can't see. You have to be it to see it. You know what I'm saying? You have to, and then reaping what you sow. Because see, the better you can manage with what you do have, like I said, in the eyes of God, it's respectable. And now it's like you deserve more based upon you working with less. And that's the whole concept of less is more as well. You know, less is more. You might think you need more. You put that pressure on the external world, and you end up getting less, because everything that you try to accumulate to satisfy something else, you put blood on your hands in other ways, and you create more debt. That's like, again, you not taking care of your debt. Instead of you're starting to get credit for something else. It's like, you know what I'm saying, if you don't pay your debts in life, but you keep accumulating debt, then again, it just puts you more into bankruptcy spiritually, you know, spiritually speaking. So, you know what I'm saying, that's the whole metaphysics behind reaping what you sow. You know, hopefully I hit the points that, you know what I'm saying, I feel like, hopefully I hit the points and y'all understand what I'm saying. You know, but that's one of the harsh truths of life in general, is just you got to reap what you sow sometimes. And you got to look at it like, damn, like, okay, this is the pattern. What am I finna do about it? And you can either choose to sit there and cry about it. You know, shout out to Maxwell, Lifetime. If y'all haven't heard that song, bump that shit. And that's the representation of this energy right here. And the lyrics is like, you know, I can sit by, you know what I'm saying, I can let my life pass me by, or I can get down and try, work it all out this lifetime. Like high key shit, that right there, that's my shit, man. That's one of my favorite songs, for real. My mom used to play that shit and I used to always love it, but that shit a representation of some real shit. You know what I'm saying? I can let my life pass me by, or I can get down and try, work it all out this lifetime. You know what I'm saying? So we have to kind of adopt that type of attitude when it comes to this lifetime. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, man, you can sit there and cry all you want about what you feel like the world ain't giving you, but what's that actually going to help? At least if you accept, okay, the world ain't gonna give me this. I can't expect my next door neighbor or the person I can't expect anyone to give me this. What am I finna do? Am I gonna let that corrupt me and demand, rob, shoot, steal, drag it out of others forcefully? Am I gonna, you know what I'm saying, complain about it and make it my God, aka the very thing that you lay down and submit to? Or am I gonna be the representation of that shit and take power control over my entire life? You know, take power control over that thing and produce what I can to make the world change and see why it's important. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the thing. It might not be important to the world. And it might not even be important to anybody else. It's just important to you, because everybody got a unique perspective on how they seeing it. You know, what you need might not be the same thing somebody puts that same level of importance in. And sometimes we be thinking that if someone can't do that, then that's the wrong person to be with, or that's the wrong group to be in. And sometimes it's like, yeah, you can live your life doing that, but you still gonna create a cycle where every situation you jump in gonna be the same thing, where you feel like you ain't getting that, you feel like you ain't getting this, you feel like you ain't getting that, and it's gonna become the same story. You keep running and you keep running. At some point you have to stop and you have to make a decision on whether or not you're gonna generate that thing and bring it to you, or you're just gonna live a life of chasing, aka letting it pass you by, letting other things that are probably 10 times more beneficial and worth way more to you, you let those things pass by because you're tunnel vision and chasing something that even when if you were to get a piece of it in this lifetime, you will realize it ain't even shit. You know what I'm saying? But we all think it is because we feel like we lack it. You know, it's like the concept of wanting what you can't have. And it's not that you can't have it. You have to be it. You have to embody it first. And the world is yours in that sense. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, much love. Catch you on the next one. Peace.